Welcome to Court with Judy 5, where every week we dive into real, gripping courtroom drama. From shocking verdicts to unexpected twists, each case takes you closer to the truth. I'm your host, guiding you through every step of justice. We'll explore high-stakes decisions, personal struggles, and the power of law. Each story reminds us why justice matters. So, join me as we uncover the unforgettable moments in every case.
The televised courtroom had never seen such a chilling mix of entitlement, manipulation, and veiled threats, all wrapped in a designer dress and a carefully crafted victim narrative. Amanda Preston, a 38-year-old single mother who somehow lived in a $2.3 million mansion while claiming she couldn't afford an $8,500 catering bill, sat before Judge Judy with cold, calculated confidence. Her $3,200 Gucci dress moved perfectly as she shifted in her seat. The $1,400 Christian Louboutin heels on her feet and the $5,000 custom diamond-studded iPhone case she kept checking all screamed wealth and privilege. Yet she was being sued by Jennifer Hayes, a 52-year-old small business owner whose family catering company had provided premium services for Amanda's daughter's extravagant birthday party 7 months earlier. Services Amanda simply refused to pay for. When Judge Judy questioned why she believed she could ignore a legitimate debt to a business that had never been stiffed in 28 years, Amanda made a decision that would cost her everything. She leaned back with a smirk, pulled out her phone like it was a weapon, and waved it toward the judge with arrogant ease. "I can end this with one call." Those 6 words, dripping with entitlement, would soon spread across social media, turning her into one of the most criticized figures online. What Amanda didn't realize was that Judge Judy had already looked into her past, who she relied on, how she lived, and the trail of damage she left behind. The life Amanda presented built on manipulation, intimidation, and carefully maintained appearances was about to unravel on national television. What followed wasn't just a court ruling. It was a complete exposure, one that threatened her lifestyle, reputation, and future. In the moments ahead, her confidence would collapse into panic as the truth surfaced piece by piece. The very phone she used to intimidate the courtroom would become evidence against her. This case would become more than a dispute. It would stand as a powerful example of what happens when perceived power collides with real authority. And in the end, it made one thing clear: no amount of image, influence, or intimidation can shield someone from accountability. Here's a question that millions of hardworking people who play by the rules and pay their bills ask every single day. When did some people start believing that being attractive and claiming victim status gives them the right to cheat honest business owners out of money they earned? When did vague threats about powerful connections become an acceptable excuse to avoid paying legitimate debts? When did waving an expensive phone replace having real power or real resources? What happened to Amanda Preston proved something Judge Judy has always understood, something entitled frauds tend to forget. In a courtroom, the only power that matters is truth, evidence, and whether you've treated others with basic decency. On a Thursday afternoon, the case of Jennifer Hayes versus Amanda Preston was called $8,500 in unpaid catering services, along with claims for emotional distress and business harm. What should have been a simple breach of contract case, the kind resolved quickly with clear evidence, was about to unfold into something much deeper: an exposure of manipulation, deception, and a lifestyle built on other people's money. As the bailiff announced the case, the contrast between the 2 women entering the courtroom said everything. Amanda Preston didn't walk in like a defendant preparing to answer serious accusations. She made an entrance as if she were attending a high-profile event. Her perfectly styled blonde hair, fresh from an expensive salon visit, moved with each confident step. Designer Chanel sunglasses rested on her head like a crown. Despite being indoors, she carried her diamond-studded phone as a symbol of status, even checking it before sitting down, ignoring instructions to silence it. Her entire presence suggested she saw the proceedings as nothing more than an inconvenient something she expected to dismiss quickly before returning to her carefully curated life. Jennifer Hayes, on the other hand, entered carrying the visible weight of months of stress, financial strain, and uncertainty that had pushed her small business to the edge. At 52, he wore a modest business suit, the kind chosen for practicality rather than appearance. In her hands was a thick binder filled with contracts, messages, photos, and records every piece of evidence she had gathered in her effort to hold someone accountable. Her hands trembled slightly as she took her place, not from fear of the courtroom, but from the pressure of fighting for what she was rightfully owed while watching her business suffer because someone else decided that paying bills was optional. The dark circles under Jennifer's eyes told the story of someone pushed to the edge, working double shifts to recover lost income, nearly forced to lay off employees who depended on their paychecks, and constantly questioning whether the fight was worth it against someone with seemingly endless resources and connections. Judge Judy reviewed the case file with the careful precision of someone who had handled thousands of cases, developing an almost instinctive ability to detect patterns of manipulation within moments. She had already noticed inconsistencies in Amanda's paperwork, small details that hinted at much larger deceptions beneath the surface. She opened the proceedings in her usual direct manner. "Miss Preston, you're being sued for $8,500 in unpaid catering services for your daughter's birthday party. Why haven't you paid this bill?" Amanda responded instantly, her tone polished and rehearsed. "Your Honor, there were significant quality issues. The food didn't meet the standards I was promised. The presentation was poor. And frankly, I was overcharged for what I actually received." She delivered her statement without even glancing at Jennifer, as if the woman didn't deserve acknowledgement. Judge Judy leaned forward slightly, already noting the vague claims and dismissive attitude. "Do you have any photographs or documentation of these issues? Any evidence the service was inadequate?" Amanda waved her hand casually. "I was hosting a party for my daughter, Your Honor. I wasn't documenting problems. I was trying to manage the situation and make sure her day wasn't ruined by incompetent service." The word incompetent lingered, and Jennifer's grip tightened on her binder as she held back her reaction. Judge Judy's expression shifted, subtle but telling. "So you expect this court to accept your claims without any evidence? No photos, no witnesses, no documentation?" Amanda let out an exaggerated sigh, clearly believing she was dealing with someone who didn't understand her perspective. "I'm a single mother trying to give my daughter a nice birthday. I shouldn't need to present forensic evidence just to dispute being overcharged." The appeal to sympathy came quickly, as if it justified avoiding payment altogether. But Judge Judy had already noticed something more telling. Amanda's outfit, her accessories, the jewelry on her wrists, all of it together was worth more than the $8,500 she claimed she couldn't afford. A woman who truly couldn't pay a catering bill wouldn't be dressed in thousands of dollars worth of designer items while making that claim in court. Judge Judy turned her attention to Jennifer Hayes, her tone softening slightly in the way it often did when addressing someone who appeared to have been genuinely wronged. "Miss Hayes, tell me about this event and what actually happened." Jennifer took a steadying breath before speaking. Her voice carried the weight of months of frustration of being ignored, dismissed, and disrespected, but also the relief of finally being heard. "Your Honor, Miss Preston contacted me 3 months before her daughter's 7th birthday. She found my company through our website after seeing photos of events we'd catered. She said she wanted a luxury princess-themed party for 50 children and 30 adults." Jennifer opened her binder and stepped forward with a document. She showed me inspiration photos and made it clear that money was no object. She told me she wanted the best for her daughter. She handed over the signed contract. "We created a detailed agreement covering everything: custom menus for both children and adults, a full dessert bar with a 3-tier cake, complete setup and breakdown, rental coordination, and a team of 6 staff members to run the event from start to finish. The total cost was $8,500, clearly itemized. Miss Preston signed the contract without any objections. Jennifer paused briefly before continuing. The contract required a 50% deposit before work began. The first check she gave us bounced. Her voice tightened slightly. When I contacted her, she dismissed it as a bank error and only provided another check after I warned her the event would be canceled. That payment eventually cleared. She shook her head faintly. I should have taken that as a warning, but I believed her. She seemed sincere about wanting to create something special for her daughter. The event took place on a Saturday. My team arrived early to set up at the residence a large estate with extensive outdoor space. We spent hours preparing everything exactly as agreed. Every detail matched the contract. Food was properly prepared and maintained, displays were professionally arranged, and the dessert table looked exactly like the examples she had requested. Judge Judy reviewed the photographs. Jennifer provided clear images of a polished, high-quality setup, along with pictures of Amanda herself smiling and posing beside the displays. The party was a success. Jennifer continued, her confidence growing. Guests complimented the food. The children enjoyed everything. Miss Preston personally thanked me several times during the event and told me we had exceeded her expectations. We even have photos of her celebrating, interacting with guests, and praising the setup. At the end of the event, she signed a satisfaction form, confirming that all services were delivered as promised and that everything exceeded expectations. Jennifer handed over the signed form. The remaining balance was due within 7 days. After that, she stopped responding completely. Called, emailed, and sent messages, nothing. No response at all. 2 weeks after the party, Jennifer continued. She received a message that changed everything. She sent me a text saying, "The food was cold and terrible, and I'm not paying for substandard service." Judge Judy looked up sharply from the documents. She waited 2 weeks to make that claim, after signing a form stating everything was perfect. After posing for photos with your setup, Jennifer nodded firmly. I responded immediately with the photographs, the signed satisfaction form, and even statements from 3 of her guests, who later contacted me to book their own events because they were so impressed. And what was her response? Judge Judy asked. She blocked my number. Jennifer explained that she then sent the invoice through certified mail to ensure it was received. In response, I got a letter on legal letterhead from someone claiming to be her attorney, threatening to sue me for harassment and defamation if I continued trying to collect payment. Judge Judy's expression shifted instantly. "Do you have that letter?" Jennifer handed it over without hesitation. Judge Judy examined it carefully, her expression growing more serious by the second. "Miss Preston," she said, looking up, "who is this attorney?" Amanda shifted in her seat, her confidence no longer as steady. "He's my lawyer. He handles my legal matters. What's his bar license number?" Amanda hesitated. "I don't have that with me." "Where is his office located?" "I'm not sure of the exact address." Judge Judy leaned back slightly, a faint, knowing smile appearing. "Miss Preston, there is no attorney by that name licensed to practice in this state. This letter is clearly fabricated generic letterhead. Multiple spelling errors and legal mistakes no real attorney would make." She paused, letting the weight of that sink in. "So I'll ask you again, who wrote this letter?" The silence that followed was heavy. The confidence Amanda had shown earlier was beginning to crack under pressure. Before Amanda could respond, Judge Judy shifted her attention. "Miss Hayes, I see you've brought witnesses. Who are they?" Jennifer stood, her voice steadier now. These are other business owners who had the same experience. Miss Preston hired them, received quality service, signed agreements, and then refused to pay using similar threatening letters from the same supposed attorney. Judge Judy's expression hardened. Step forward and identify yourselves. The first witness approached a professionally dressed woman in her 40s, visibly nervous but composed. My name is Sarah Chen, Your Honor. I'm a professional photographer. 2 years ago, Sarah Chen began, steadying herself. Miss Preston hired me to photograph her daughter's birthday party, take portraits for what she claimed was her business website, and create images for her dating profiles. The total cost was $3,200. I delivered over 500 professionally edited photos. She loved them so much that she posted dozens on her social media accounts, even removing my watermark, which violated our agreement. When I sent the invoice, her attitude changed completely. Suddenly, the photos were unusable and poorly lit, even though she had been using them publicly for weeks. I sent a cease and desist notice for the copyright violation. She responded with a letter from the same supposed attorney threatening legal action. Sarah paused, her voice tightening. I had to write off the loss. I couldn't afford a legal battle against someone who seemed to have endless resources. That amount was a month of income for my business. It nearly forced me to shut down. The next witness stepped forward, a woman in her late 30s, her expression marked by exhaustion and frustration. My name is Michelle Rodriguez. Your Honor, I run a party planning business. Miss Preston hired me for the same birthday event. I handled vendor coordination, scheduling, setup, and execution. The contract was for $6,800, and everything went exactly as planned. She even posted photos online, tagging my business and praising my work, saying, I brought her vision to life perfectly. 2 weeks later, she claimed there were issues and refused to pay. I showed her screenshots of her own posts. She blocked me everywhere. I received the same threatening letter from that so-called attorney. Her voice hardened. That loss nearly destroyed my business. I had already paid vendors and staff, expecting her payment. I had to take out a personal loan just to recover. The third witness stepped forward, an older man, clearly uneasy in the courtroom, but determined to speak. My name is David Torres, Your Honor. I own a landscaping company. Miss Preston hired us to redesign the backyard of the home she was living in. She said she needed it done quickly for an upcoming event. The job was $12,000. We worked overtime and finished in 2 weeks instead of 4. When we completed the work, she walked through everything with me and said it was perfect, exactly what she wanted. I even have messages from her saying it exceeded expectations. He paused briefly. Then her check bounced. When I contacted her, she said her boyfriend would handle it. That never happened. I took her to small claims court and won a judgment 3 years ago. She hasn't paid a single dollar. I even tried to collect through legal channels, but found out she reports no income. 2 years ago, Miss Preston hired me to photograph her daughter's 5th birthday party, take portraits of her for what she claimed was her business website, and shoot images for her dating profiles. The total cost was $3,200. I delivered over 500 professionally edited photographs. She loved them so much that she immediately posted dozens of them on social media after removing my watermark, which violated our contract. When I sent the invoice, her attitude changed completely. Suddenly, the photos were poorly lit and unusable, despite the fact that she had been using them publicly for weeks. I sent a cease and desist letter regarding the copyright violation. She responded with a letter from Robert. Matt's threatening to sue me for harassment. Eventually, I wrote off the loss because I couldn't afford to fight a legal battle against someone who appeared to have unlimited access to attorneys. Sarah's voice cracked slightly. That $3,000 was a month of income for my small business. I almost had to shut down because of that loss. The second witness stepped forward, a woman in her late 30s with the exhausted look of someone who had been fighting for justice for far too long. My name is Michelle Rodriguez, Your Honor. I run a party planning business. Miss Preston hired me to coordinate her daughter's 5th birthday party, the same event Miss Chen photographed. My services included vendor coordination, timeline management, setup supervision, and day of execution. The contract was for $6,800, and everything went flawlessly. She posted photos on social media tagging my business and praising my work, saying I brought her vision to life perfectly. 2 weeks later, she messaged me claiming there were too many mistakes and refused to pay. I showed her her own posts praising the event. She blocked me on every platform. I also received the same threatening letter from Robert Matz. Her expression tightened. That loss nearly bankrupted my startup. I had to take out a personal loan because I had already paid vendors and staff expecting her payment. The third witness stepped forward, weathered, visibly uncomfortable, but determined. My name is David Torres, Your Honor. I own a landscaping company. Miss Preston hired us to completely redesign the backyard of the home she was living in. She said it had to be done quickly for a garden party. The job cost $12,000. We worked overtime and finished in 2 weeks instead of 4. When we completed it, she walked the property with me and said it was absolutely perfect. I have text messages where she says it exceeded her expectations. Then her check bounced. When I contacted her, she said her boyfriend would handle it. That never happened. I filed in small claims court and won a judgment 3 years ago. She never paid a single dollar. I attempted to collect through legal channels, but discovered she reports no income. 2 years ago, Miss Preston hired me to photograph her daughter's 5th birthday party, take portraits of her for what she said was her business website, and shoot photos she wanted for her dating profiles. The total cost was $3,200. I delivered over 500 edited, professional quality photographs. Miss Preston loved them so much, she immediately posted dozens on her social media accounts after removing my watermark, which violated our contract. When I sent her the invoice, suddenly the photos were unusable and poorly lit, despite the fact that she had been using them publicly for weeks. I sent her a cease and desist letter about the copyright violation. She responded with a letter from Robert Matz threatening to sue me for harassment. I eventually wrote off the loss because I couldn't afford to pursue legal action against someone who seemed to have unlimited resources for attorneys. That $3,000 represented a month of income from my small business. I nearly had to close because of that loss. The second witness stepped forward, a Latina woman in her late 30s with the exhausted look of someone who had been fighting for justice for too long. I'm Michelle Rodriguez, Your Honor. I run a party planning business. Miss Preston hired me to coordinate her daughter's 5th birthday party. It's the same event Ms. Chin photographed. My services included vendor coordination, timeline management, setup supervision, and day of execution. The contract was for $6,800. Everything went flawlessly. She posted photos on social media, tagging my business and praising my work, saying I made her vision come to life perfectly. 2 weeks later, she sent a message claiming there were too many mistakes and she wasn't paying. I showed her screenshots of her own social media posts praising me. She blocked me on every platform. I received the same threatening letter from Robert Matz. That loss nearly bankrupted my startup business. I had to take out a personal loan to cover my expenses because I had already paid my vendors and staff expecting her payment. The third witness was an older man, weathered and clearly uncomfortable in the formal courtroom setting, but determined to have his story heard. My name is David Torres, Your Honor. I own a landscaping company. Miss Preston hired us to completely redesign the backyard of the house she was living in. She said she needed it done immediately because she was hosting a garden party. The job cost $12,000. We worked overtime. Finished in 2 weeks instead of the normal 4. She walked the property with me when we completed the work, told me it was absolutely perfect and exactly what she wanted. I have her text messages saying it exceeded her expectations. Her check bounced. When I called her, she said her boyfriend would take care of it. Never happened. I filed in small claims court and won a judgment 3 years ago. She never paid a single dollar. I tried to garnish her wages and discovered she has no reported income. I tried to place a lien and discovered she owns no property. Everything is in other people's names. That judgment is still unpaid. I lost $12,000 and had to lay off one of my workers because of the financial hit. Judge Judy's face had transformed into an expression of barely controlled fury as she opened a thick file folder that had been sitting on her bench throughout the proceedings. Miss Preston, let's talk about your lifestyle and how you managed to afford it while apparently having no income, no assets, and a trail of unpaid debt stretching back years. Amanda's voice took on a defensive edge that made her sound like a cornered animal. Your Honor, I don't see how my personal finances are relevant to this dispute about catering services. Judge Judy's response was swift and cutting. It's extremely relevant when you're claiming you couldn't afford to pay $8,500. While sitting in my courtroom wearing a $3,200 dress, $1,400 shoes, and carrying a phone with a custom case that costs $5,000, it's relevant when multiple witnesses are testifying to an identical pattern of fraud. And it's especially relevant when my research team has uncovered exactly how you've been living for the past 7 years. Judge Judy began reading from the file with the methodical precision of a prosecutor laying out a criminal case. Amanda Preston, you have filed 0 income tax returns for the past 5 years. No W-2 forms. No 1099 forms. No business income reported to the IRS, despite claiming to be an entrepreneur and consultant. You have no registered business entity in this state or any other. The $2.3 million home you live in is mortgaged in the name of Richard Whitmore, your current boyfriend. The Range Rover you drive is leased in Richard Whitmore's name. Your credit cards are all authorized user accounts on other people's cards. Your daughter's $35,000 per year private school tuition is being paid by Marcus Ashford, your previous boyfriend. Your health insurance is still on the family plan of Thomas Chen, the boyfriend before that. You don't own a single asset. You have no legitimate income. Everything in your life is provided by men you're dating or have dated. Judge Judy looked up from the file with an expression of contempt that made the temperature in the courtroom feel like it dropped. So let me ask you directly, Miss Preston. How exactly do you support yourself and your daughter? Amanda stood up abruptly, her chair scraping loudly against the floor, her composure finally breaking. Your Honor, you don't understand how the world works. I'm a single mother, doing the best I can. Richard helps support me while I build my business, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's what people in relationships do. Judge Judy's voice cut through her rising hysteria. Sit down, Miss Preston. Sit down right now. She pulled out her iPhone, holding it up like it was a talisman that could protect her from consequences. You know what? You want to threaten me? Fine. I can end this with one call. One call, and your little TV show will have problems you can't even imagine. The courtroom didn't just go silent. It felt like it slipped into another reality where even breathing sounded too loud. Every single person sat frozen in absolute disbelief at what they had just witnessed. Amanda Preston, still standing, still holding that diamond-encrusted iPhone up like a weapon, had just threatened Judge Judy Shinlin on national television. And the look on Judge Judy's face as she slowly rose from her chair was something that would be replayed millions of times across every social media platform for years to come. Judge Judy stood, which she almost never did during proceedings. And when she stood, everyone in that room understood something had crossed a line into complete and total finality. "Put the phone down, Miss Preston. Put it down right now." Her voice was deadly calm, the kind of calm that comes before a Category 5 hurricane makes landfall. But Amanda, already too far gone in panic and desperation, kept going. "I'm just saying, Your Honor, there are people who won't appreciate how I'm being treated here. Important people, powerful people. One phone call, and this situation goes away. One call to the right person, and everything changes." Judge Judy's faint smile was terrifying. "One call to whom, Miss Preston? Tell me exactly who you think you're going to call." Amanda hesitated, finally realizing she had made a catastrophic mistake, but still too proud, too desperate to back down. "I don't have to tell you that. That's private." Judge Judy didn't miss a beat. "Is it Richard Whitmore you're planning to call? The man whose house you live in? The man whose car you drive? The man who has no idea you're being sued because you haven't told him anything about this?" Amanda's face went pale. The color drained so fast it was visible even under her makeup. "How did you?" she started, but stopped as Judy continued. "Or maybe Marcus Sassford, the man still paying your daughter's private school tuition because you told him you were between jobs 3 years ago and you're still not employed. Or Thomas Chen, who still has you on his health insurance because you claimed a pre-existing condition. All 3 men, Miss Preston. And not one of them knows the full truth about what you've been doing, who you've been using, or how. Many people you've left behind with unpaid bills while you live on their money." Judge Judy opened her file, her voice shifting into something colder, more deliberate-like. She had been waiting years for this moment. "My research team has been extraordinarily thorough, Miss Preston. And here is what we discovered about your pattern of behavior over the past 7 years. You target wealthy divorced men, typically 15 to 20 years older than you. Men who are successful but lonely and susceptible to a beautiful woman who claims to need their help and protection. You move in with them within 3 to 6 months of meeting them, always with your daughter in tow to create the image of an instant family. You convince them to put the house and car in their names for supposed tax purposes. You get added as an authorized user on their credit cards. You claim you're building a business and just need a little time to get established, so you contribute nothing financially while spending thousands of dollars per month on personal luxuries. And then you run up massive bills with local vendors, always promising that your boyfriend will pay, always saying money's no object. When the vendors come looking for payment, you suddenly discover quality issues that didn't exist. You refuse to pay. You send threatening letters from your fake attorney, Robert Matz. And when the vendors give up because they can't afford to fight you legally, you move on to the next victim. When each relationship eventually ends after 18 to 24 months because these men finally realize they're being used, you simply move directly to the next wealthy target, leaving the previous boyfriend stuck with mortgages, car leases, and unpaid vendor bills. The gallery was completely silent, except for the sound of Judge Judy turning pages in her file. Each document another nail in the coffin of Amanda's fake life. Thomas Chen, 2018 to 2020. You lived in his home, drove his car, spent his money. You accumulated $67,000 in unpaid vendor bills over those 2 years, telling everyone Thomas would pay. When vendors contacted Thomas, he discovered you'd been cheating on him with Marcus Ashford. He ended the relationship. But you manipulated him into keeping you on his health insurance by claiming medical necessity. Marcus Ashford, 2020 to 2022. Same exact pattern. You moved from Thomas's house directly into Marcus's mansion, a key paid. For everything while you promised to contribute once your business launched a business that never existed. You racked up $83,000 in unpaid vendor bills. And when they started suing, some of them named Marcus in the lawsuits because you'd implied he had authorized the purchases. He broke up with you when he discovered the fraud, but you manipulated him into continuing to pay your daughters private school tuition by claiming it was for Sophia's stability. He's still paying $35,000 per year, 3 years later. Richard Whitmore, 2022 to present. You met him 1 week after Marcus ended your relationship. 1 week, you moved into his $2.3 million home within 2 months. Same promises about your business. Same pattern of spending his money. Same accumulation of unpaid vendor bills that now total $94,000 and counting. Richard has no idea you're being sued. He doesn't know about the unpaid bills. He thinks you're a successful entrepreneur going through a temporary organization. You're spending $8,000 to $12,000 per month of his money on personal luxury items, while claiming to be building a business. Judge Judy's voice rose with righteous fury as she delivered her final devastating blow. 27 small business owners, Miss Preston. $263,000 in unpaid bills over 7 years. 3 wealthy men defrauded. A daughter weaponized as a prop to gain sympathy. A father denied custody through your manipulation and lies. Fake attorney letters sent to intimidate people. And now, threatening a judge in her courtroom. Because you thought waving an expensive phone that doesn't even belong to you would somehow save you from consequences. Here's my ruling, and I want you to listen very carefully because your life is about to change forever. Jennifer Hayes is awarded $8,500 in unpaid services plus $3,000 in interest and late fees plus $5,000 in emotional distress plus $2,500 in legal costs. Total judgment, $19,000 due immediately. Furthermore, I am referring this case to the district attorney for criminal investigation into fraud and impersonating an attorney. I am sending my complete file to Richard Whitmore so he knows exactly who's living in his house. I am notifying Marcus and Thomas so they can pursue civil remedies. I am forwarding everything to your daughter's father to support his custody case. And I am releasing my findings to every business you've defrauded and to the media because the public has a right to know about serial fraudsters. Get out of my courtroom, Miss Preston. Your one phone call just cost you everything.